We got a great program today, and if I think it's time for it. So Larry, want to come up and introduce it?
Well, it's been a long time since you got to see one of our former club members, so I thought I'd bring you back. It's Dusty Pierpoint. He's a Timberline High School graduate, just down the road a couple of miles.
So Lacey.
He still remembers that. He's also a graduate of Evergreen State College. He's married, has 2 kids and 4 grandkids now. And originally he was, is John Mansfield here? No? Okay, he was hired by John a long time ago, as you might imagine. And he's been with the Lacey Police Department for over 30 years now. So he's going to tell us a little bit about some of the issues that they're dealing with. Not necessarily just here, but some of the same issues that most police departments are dealing with currently right now. So come on up, Dusty, and let's hear what you have to tell us.
Go ahead, Mitch had to do that first.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here in place of Sheriff Snaza, and I'm pleased to report that he is doing much better than he was a week ago. He's talking. He's still in Idaho, and he's got a long road of recovery, but things look much better today than they did a week ago. So he's in our thoughts and prayers, as I know he is with you as well. You know, Mitch didn't show the picture of when him and Laura were getting their picture taken, and he got her stuck in a boat in the pond during the wedding reception. Mitch, what's up with that?
Laura made the presentation.
Okay. So when I was asked to speak today by Larry, I had to come up with something quick, and I thought maybe I would just kind of talk about things that are going on in general with law enforcement, nationally, locally, and those types of things, and maybe answer some questions. So we'll get started. Policing has some basic principles, and our basic mission: to prevent crime and disorder. Agree with that? The ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval. Can agree with that?
Yeah.
Police must secure the willing cooperation of the public and have the respect of the public. Probably have noticed it's been a rough time for law enforcement over the last year or two. And there's been a lot of focus on what police do and how we do it. Principle number 4, the degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminishes proportionally to the necessity of the use of physical force. Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
You heard of Sir Robert Peel. Those principles he came up with over 160 years ago. He actually came up with 9. These are them. I'm not going to go through them all, but those first 4 I thought I would share. You know, 160 plus years ago, those principles still apply today. Policing really hasn't changed that much. We still need to do the things that made it important back then, today. And I think it's pretty interesting how timeless those principles are. He also had a quote: "Public opinion is a compound of folly, weakness, prejudice, wrong feeling, right feeling, obstinacy, and newspaper paragraphs." No blogs back then, Ken. But what has changed is social media. And it has changed how we deal in America, but in policing in general, with the things that are going on around us. When I began, we could prepare, we could investigate, we could get the facts before we came to the podium and addressed the public. Those days are gone. Facebook, Twitter, and all the new social media have things out on the internet, one-dimensional, video, before anybody has the opportunity to collect the facts, make a statement, and get in front of the public and give a side of the story. We've all seen it, we've all been there, but it's completely changed how we approach crime scenes, officer-involved use of force, and those types of things. Because it's immediate, and people want immediate answers. in our society. And that can't be done all the time. The things that law enforcement is asked to deal with currently is really expanded. Mental illness, homelessness, drug addiction, you name it. These are not law enforcement problems. These are society problems that should be dealt with by professionals in the mental health business, in the housing business. But everybody has put those things out into the world of 911, let the police handle it, and we have been tasked with becoming experts in mental illness, drug addiction, homelessness, family counseling, drug addiction. Where do we take the mentally ill? The hospitals are bursting at the seams. The jails are 30% population of mentally ill inmates. People that I will tell you most likely do not belong in jail. They belong in some type of treatment, but there is no treatment. So they end up in jail. The system is broke. The system is broke. The president, nationally, put together a task force to look at law enforcement and how things are being done. And I will back up a little bit and say, the things you hear and see in large cities, we can't paint a broad brush on law enforcement, because policing in Baltimore is different than policing in Seattle, is different than policing in Lacey. And so there is no one fix for all law enforcement. There are some lessons to be learned. I'm not saying that police can't get better. We certainly can, and we will. But we can't all take the same template and apply it to every law enforcement jurisdiction in every state, because things are different, communities are different, support of law enforcement is different, policing is different. But there are 6 pillars that the President's task force came up with. Building public trust. Same thing Sir Robert Peel was talking about 150 years ago. Policy and oversight. Very important. And you know, when you start looking at law enforcement agencies across the country, sometimes you scratch your head and you can't believe the lack of policy or the lack of training or the lack of some of those types of things. So it is very important that policy and oversight is there. Lacey Police Department is a state accredited agency. Chief Mansfield started that legacy, and we've continued that. That means we at least have oversight of our policies and our training, best practice, state law, and so we feel like we're doing okay there. Technology and social media. We have a Twitter account now. I don't know how to tweet, but we do have people that do that. But social media and technology, you know, we have computers in the cars, we have cell phones on our belts. It's always changing, and I know you all realize that, but it's very difficult as a government agency to keep up, because technology changes much faster than a government budget can buy new computers and new technology all the time. But it has also helped policing as far as communication, because we are able to get the message out there in social media. If there's a bad message or an error in the message, we can at least try to compete with that in the social media world. Community policing, that's not a new term. That was around in the 80s. It's being re-energized and is an important tool. Officer training and education. The state mandates 24 hours a year per officer for training. And we averaged last year, department-wide, over 100 hours per officer in training. There is never enough time to have enough training. And specifically when you're asked now for a 40-hour class on how to deal with crisis intervention, mental illness, and de-escalation techniques, and all of the new things that are being put on law enforcement, adds to that training hours. Officer safety and wellness. So these are some of the new things that are coming up with law enforcement as far as training and things we're expected to do. Fair and impartial policing. That deals with bias. Racial bias specifically is a big topic in the news right now. Blue courage. Some of you may have heard of the difference between a warrior and a guardian police officer and mentality. That's the Blue Courage curriculum kind of speaks to that. De-escalation. More emphasis on trying to de-escalate situations as opposed to coming in and taking immediate command and control and enforcing the law. And I will say this year, in 30 years in law enforcement, was the first time that we walked away from a suicidal subject that wouldn't come out of the house. And I've never done that. Once we got called to a scene like that, we had to end that scene by controlling the situation. Things have changed a little bit. Now there's risks both ways, but that was a real aha moment for me to walk away and leave that person there. But our other choice was to use force, and that wasn't a good solution either. So de-escalation has become a big deal in training. Crisis intervention training. Our gentleman in the back there, sir, does a lot of training for us. And 40-hour class is not mandatory, but 8 hours is mandatory statewide. And that is how to deal with people under mental psychosis, mental trauma, and those types of things. And now PTSD, we have a large population of military in this area. PTSD and traumatic brain injury is another thing that we're being trained to deal with. And then less lethal tools, providing the officers with more options when they get to a situation with a grumpy person. Everybody know Susan Boyle? Yeah. Everybody knows Susan Boyle.
Hi, what's your name, darling?
My name is Susan Boyle.
Okay, Susan, and where are you from?
I am from Blackburn near Bathgate, West Lothian.
It's a big town.
It's a sort of collection of, villages. That's a thing for you.
And how old are you, Susan?
I am 47. And that's just one side of me.
Okay, what's the dream?
I'm trying to be a professional singer.
And why hasn't it worked out so far, Susan?
I've not been given the chance before, but here's hoping it will change.
Okay, and who would you like to be as successful as?
Elaine Page.
Elaine Page.
What are you going to sing tonight?
I'm going to sing I Dreamed a Dream from the Miserables.
Okay. It's all. Yeah? Yes.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by. When the skies light up.
No. without a doubt, that was the biggest surprise I have had in 3 years on this show. When you stood there with that cheeky grin and said, I want to be like Elaine Page, everyone was laughing at you. No one is laughing now. That was stunning, an incredible performance. Amazing. I'm reeling from shock about you two.
I am so thrilled because I know that everybody was against you. I honestly think that we were all being very cynical, and I think that's the biggest wake-up call ever. And I just want to say that it was a complete privilege listening to that. It was
I knew the minute you walked out that stage that you were going to hear something extraordinary, and I was right. Susan, you are a little tiger, aren't you?
I don't know about
You are. Okay, moment of truth. Here's yes or no.
The biggest yes I have ever given anyone.
Amanda?
Yes, definitely.
So, anybody know why I'm showing this?
Surprise the appearance of someone versus what they actually are.
Appearances can be deceiving.
I talked about fair and impartial policing, and a big part of that training is bias. And it's a big deal in law enforcement circles right now, and specifically implicit bias. An implicit bias we all have it, and it's the underlying biases that we have that we're not openly thinking about. It's how we were raised, where we were raised, where we went to school, who we've lived with. All of those things contribute to our biases. And you saw it at the beginning when she walked out on stage. People immediately had an opinion, an idea of how this was going to end. It's just a really good example of how bias happens. And with police, unfortunately, biases can be taken out of context, or they can be something that we need to talk about and discuss. You can't necessarily cure people's biases, but you can make them aware of their biases. And there's a lot of training going on. We are actually having all of our officers go through training in October. Olympia just went through it, and it's just a really good discussion. But this video is part of the training, and it just kind of is a fun way of showing how we all have biases. And it's interesting, when I used to teach in the high schools, kids would talk about being stereotyped, and we harass the kids and those types of things. And I would tell them, I said, you all stereotyped me the second I walked in this room because I have this uniform on. You either liked me or hated me, and neither one is right until you get to know me. So don't tell me about stereotyping. Cops get stereotyped all the time. We have a good discussion with that. So anyway, it's good discussion. Implicit bias, if you haven't seen it in the newspapers or on TV, you will. It's a very well documented, researched thing, and it's something that law enforcement is now trying to teach and learn and understand. What are we doing locally? Building public trust. It's constant and ongoing. We have a school resource officer program that we have had for several years. I think it's probably one of the most important programs we have because it literally touches every high school, middle school kid in North Thurston Public Schools. And we've had that program for probably 15 or 20 years now. Many of those students are now adults in our community that have their own kids, but there is an opportunity to have a police officer around those young adults every day, interacting, helping them get through high school and teenage years, directing them and making them realize that we're part of the community together and that we're human and that we like them and those types of things. So the school resource officer program is great. Shop with a Cop is where we take kids from the Boys and Girls Club shopping during Christmas. Cops, Cars, and Kids we just had. That's a free event at City Hall where families can come, get a hot dog, check out all of our vehicles and equipment and fingerprint and get black powder everywhere, and we had a very good turnout this year. Chief for a Day is where we have a young person that's got a serious injury or illness, and we take them up to their training commission and swear them in as a chief, and they have the parking lot full of things, and they get lots of presents. It's a very cool event. We do have some of our pictures on Twitter, if any of you know how to get on there. National Night Out, we've also just had, and that's where neighbors get out to meet neighbors. Horizon Point is our biggest event, where several hundred people show up, and Meet My LPD is where we go out in the community, just an open forum, have a cup of coffee. People are free to ask or talk about whatever they want. We hold those several times throughout the year. I talked about Twitter, and then non-enforcement contacts. Probably 2 years ago, kind of changed our focus from enforcement and writing tickets and those types of things to non-enforcement contacts being just as important. And what I mean by that is a traffic warning, a business check, a bank check, a school check, a sidewalk, just communication with a citizen where there is no enforcement taken, but we started measuring those and actually pushing the officers to do more of those. Very few people get upset when they get a traffic warning, by the way. So we did 15,000 non-enforcement contacts last year, and so far I think it's been going really well. And then just getting out in the community, you know, things like this. There's lots of events going on. And so it's important for the officers to get out, not just me, but the actual officers to get out and meet the community and the citizens and go to different things. Dave's looking at his watch. I got one more quick thing, because with all the negativity out there, so I'll set the stage. This is Martin Way, right down here. And Thurston County Sheriff's Lacey PD.
No, I can't open the doors. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to drive. Yeah.
This is an inner city transit bus. People are filming from inside.
What are they doing? I don't know. I really don't know. He looks, are those knives? Oh my Lord. Oh shit. He has an owl? You need to go sit down. No.
So, how do you think this ended? It ended well, obviously, because we were on CNN and you didn't see any news, and quite frankly, this is a mentally ill person, once again, someone who should be in treatment, getting better treatment. A couple months before this, he tried to run on I-5 and kill himself. Now he's running down the middle of Martin Way with 2 knives. He surrendered without any force being used. But those people on that bus are terrified. Okay? Do they care if he's mentally ill? No, absolutely not. One of my officers actually said, I didn't know if I should shoot him before he got to the bus. That's real life stuff that's going on out there. The media called. We heard what happened today. How did it end? It ended peacefully. No use of force. Click. They're not interested. That upset me. Yeah. Because that is good police work. That ended well, and that happens a lot. And nobody knows about it. Less than 0.2% of our contacts end in a use of force. But that is the only thing that makes the news. And that upsets me because, and the fact that we're dealing with this person instead of the mental health system, because this will happen again. He will act out again because he needs treatment. Yeah. So I'll get off my soapbox. Sorry. Dave's ready. And Ken told me to keep it short. So protect and serve with honor is our vision at the Lacey Police Department. I just want to say, regardless of all the drama in the media and nationally, with law enforcement, the men and women of the police department are holding their head up high, and we have got a ton of support from the community. A ton of cards, letters, food. Stop with the pizza, okay? But seriously, this community does support us, and we want to work hard every day to keep that, because I know just one incident can change things quickly, but know that they're out there working hard, and they want to work with you and for you, and so thank you for your support of the police department.
So there's time for a couple of questions if there are a couple.
Sir?
Youth that want to get into a career in law enforcement, I believe you have an Explorers, is it called an Explorers program?
Yeah, kids that are interested in law enforcement, we have a great Explorer program, 15 to 21 years of age. It's volunteer, but they at least get an opportunity to see if it's something they'd like, because you know sometimes people get involved and they're like, this isn't really for me. We also have a community service officer position, which you have to be 18 for, but that's a paid position full-time at the police department, and many of our CSOs go on to become law enforcement and or decide they don't want to be cops. And so I actually was a CSO a few years ago. Yes, sir.
30 years ago, I had the opportunity and privilege of being a kind of assistant coach at Timberline High School. And I noticed a little skinny kid out in center field. And of course, there's a lot of gray on the booth right now. I recognized at that time this was going to be a leader in our community. And we can be proud of it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And for the record, first meeting I've ever been to, Ken Balls didn't ask a question. Thank you.
And Dusty, as you may or may not know, I think we've only been doing this a couple of years, but the club has a book that we ask the program to sign, and it gets donated to the South Sound Reading Foundation, and we always look for something that's appropriate. And so there's a new breed of justice in town, and it's Dogman.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good one if you could just sign right there. And let's give Dusty another round, not only for the program, but for